On the surface, I was sitting at my keyboard writing, but in my mind, I was right there with my protagonist, Detective Jay Keene, a badass homicide cop turned private investigator as he tried to emerge from complicated grief, face down his demons, solve the case, and defeat the bad guy. When I had started on this, I was super unhappy with my work life and needed to come up with a project, and I'd come up with this one. The victim was a rising star brewmaster in the world of Austin craft beer. So the combination of murder and craft beer, and I had my title, Micro Brutality. The job I had been frustrated with came about. I was pretty happy in a writing job I already had. It was pretty interesting, and this great job came up, and it said, bring your creativity and storytelling skills to create best-in-class creative e-learning modules for new hires. I got the job, and I couldn't have been more thrilled. And then it was a corporate bait and switch. We got there, and creative storytelling skills became, you will follow this process document that is as thick as a phone book, and you will follow it exactly every day. We were a new team, and we all kind of had different reactions to this. Some people said, you know what? I'm going to play the hand I'm dealt. I'm going to adapt, and I'm going to thrive, and good for them. I admired it. Some people said, this isn't what I signed up for at all, and they noped on out, and I admired that even a little more. I was stuck in the middle. I was in my late 50s. I didn't want to change jobs very many more times. I had thought this was going to be kind of a victory lap on what had been a pretty good writing career. And I thought, well, I'll wait and see. We may get different clients and different projects that I'll like more. You don't really know a job until you've been there a year. So, we'll let it emerge. And then COVID hit. And they moved us to work from home, which was great in a lot of ways, but it meant that, first of all, the economy was contracting rapidly. I wasn't going to get another job. So I was stuck. And the work became more tedious, more dead time. All of us adapting to the first time any of us had had regular online meetings and how awkward that was. And I felt betrayed by my own bad judgment at jumping ship and enraged. And so there I was in my home office. And because I didn't have coworkers sitting on either side of me, I could bitch out loud. And I was, I can't believe they expect me to do this. And what I wasn't really thinking through, and my lack of impulse control was kind of a problem, was that my wife and my teenage son were home with me all the time, doing their online stuff. And so I was making a pretty difficult situation worse for everyone. Of course, they heard me in there ranting about my stupid job that I hated. And finally, my Cubana wife, who had been making more and more complicated baking projects during COVID, I thought maybe she was trying to sweeten my disposition with flan and pastelitos, came to me and said, hey, are you okay? Are we okay? Like okay for real? And I realized I had to get a handle on it. So online therapy for me. And I took those therapy sessions. I would walk out to the driveway and sit in the car so that my rage wouldn't emanate and, ruin the mood of everyone else in the house. Bella the Great Dane had even been giving me side eye. And out there in the driveway, I would sit in my car and I would rant at this poor online therapist, what is wanted in this job is the most soul-crushing tedium you can imagine, and everything I could offer to add value is exactly what's not wanted, which isn't what they told me. It went on like this for like a month. I would go out and scream at this guy for an hour, and until finally even I was bored with the well-worn path of my every complaint. And one day he said to me, So let me see if I've got this right. You feel invalidated in your work life because of the bait and switch. And because of COVID, you don't have any options. So you're really stuck. And I said, yes, that's it exactly. And he said, what would you be doing if they would just keep paying you and you could do whatever you wanted to? And I started talking about my personal creative work, my storytelling, my songwriting, my fiction, my poetry. And we talked about that for a while. And, I've had some successes, nothing huge. But he said, is it just ego? Like if you had a well reviewed book on the shelf, would that do it? And I said, no. It's about coming up with something new. It's about connecting with people. It's about something that comes from me in a real way, lands soul to soul with a reader or a listener or a live audience. And he said, so why don't you just do a Chewy writing project? You're not doing kid drop-offs and pickups anymore, right? Driving all over town? No. Not commuting for work? No. You got some dead time during your in-home office time? And I went, yeah. And he went, so just do it, man. And I went, okay. And then I realized I could really take on an ambitious writing project. And I had written children's literature. I had written Schoolhouse Rock type songs for an e-learning company. I had been published in a bunch of literary journals as a poet. I do singer-songwriter stuff. And I thought, I want to do something more ambitious than that. I'm going to try to write a full-length novel for adults. And I could feel my senses starting to tingle with the juiciness of that. I picked a genre, hard-boiled detective fiction, because God knows I have read enough of it. The troubled tough guy who's kind of a wisecracker with, good instincts and a good enough moral compass to bring down the bad guys and, do good in a gritty world. I'm like, that's what I'm doing. And I was thinking about the crime, and it happened that a professor I knew slightly back in school had been gunned down in his front yard. He had been going out to get the paper and was shot down right then. And it haunted me. I would often step outside to roll out the trash bins or something or walk the dog, and I would think of it like how easy it would be for somebody to commit that crime in that vulnerable moment when you would least expect it and not even be fully awake. And so that was my crime. And then I started writing backstories. I came up with everything you could ever want to know about my detective. I came up with the beer situation that my victim had been working on, why he was a rising star and everybody loved him, and it made it a big case. And I just started filling all of that in. I got to work for 2 years. I would roll out of bed early, couldn't wait to get to my keyboard. Some late nights writing, work became less of a travail for me. I was able to sort of fake my way through, sort of half mask my alienation from work. And I built my story, and it was a joy as I went through my main character's struggles and triumphs. And after about 2 years, I was pretty near the end. And there was a scene I was stuck on. There was going to be a shootout in Marfa. And I'd never been. The scene fell flat. And I thought, I wish I could just go there. Lockdown was over from COVID. We could go places again. And I could walk around and think about it and think about what he'd be thinking about in the car as he tries to iron out the wrinkles in his life and solve the case and put the clues together. And I said to my wife, I wish I could just go there and experience this and identify with my character and, make it all come alive on the page. And she said, well, you could. Like, you could just get in the car and drive to Marfa and think all those thoughts and then walk around, have a beer, get a meal, spend the night, drive back the next day. Like, you could do that. And so I did do that. And that time in the car, that immersive day of driving there and then back, and my time walking around in there, I went into Planet Marfa and bullshitted with the bartender and sort of got my sense of the place. Suddenly, that scene popped. It was one of the best scenes in the book, and I was able to push through and accomplish a thing I'd never done before. I finished a second draft of an all the way through novel for adults, and finally, heart in my throat, I was ready to let some people read what I'd written, and pretty much they all liked it. Yeah, this scene drags a little. This scene was great. Everybody really liked my character, and my teenager said to me, so his initials are JK, and he's in love with a Cubana, and he has a giant dog, and he's struggling to get past grief that he's felt in his life. Holy crap, Dad, where do you get your ideas? And of course it was true. Jay is who I would be if I were younger, smarter, stronger, cooler, better looking, but he's more emotionally screwed up. So I've got that going for me. And through a friend, I was able to put the book in front of an agent, and the agent said, this kind of cops and robbers stuff, the market has shrunk, but I like your voice. And if you take on a bigger, more ambitious book, I'll read it, and if I like it, I'll represent you. And so now we're on that journey, and Jay solved his mystery, and I solved mine. Thanks.